Feels very weird.
Yeah?
Looks like a proper set.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. We're here at the Moxie Richmond with Josh Burkey of Victims and Villains. Thank you for
Hello.
joining us today, Josh.
Hello. What's the name of the talk show
Do you
called?
like what I did with the place? It's I don't know, what is the name of the talk show?
Skate aesthetic.
Welcome to Skate Aesthetic. This is Josh Burkey, Victims and Villains. Tell me about Victims and Villains. When did it start? How long has it been going?
So we started in the spring of 2016, and I went through a really bad mental health kind of break for myself, and kind of found podcasting just really interesting. And so I approached my buddy Sean, and he was kind of going through his own mental health stuff at the time, and I was like, what if we took like an hour a week and we just talked about like nerd stuff, you know, comic books, horror, video games, anime, like we just kind of run the gambit. That was the concept that we went with. And about 6 months into it, we started wanting to do mental health because it was suicide prevention, and we actually we approached a band about sharing their kind of story of like suicide survival, and that got a lot of positive feedback. And so we kind of just looked at it and said, there's really no going back from this moment forward. And one of the things that's so we came across some like local event. I think one of the first events we ended up doing was like a comic book shop. Did like a local like thing, and I approached him. I was like, hey, I got this podcast. I would love to have a chance to set up and just tell people about the show, maybe record a couple interviews with other guests. And from there, we ended up doing music. Didn't really know what we were doing. We kind of had a really cruddy connection to it originally, and then we started doing conventions, and it kind of blossomed eventually into slowly but steadily we got involved into other aspects of media, whether that was film critiquing, film festivals, music events, conventions, other podcasts. We kind of ran the gambit with it, and we all kind of started to create this content when we shaped into the mental health nonprofit it is now, as to being this multimedia vehicle to talk about pop culture and use the familiarity of fandoms, art, all to kind of point the conversation towards mental health and gravitating that towards providing like the right resources and the right education for people. And that was something that was really crucial to us, in making sure that people weren't just looking at mental health resources and being like, oh, this maybe won't be for me, or I can't have insurance, you know. Conversation can go a long way, honestly.
It's obvious from when we attend your events and like, I mean, the film screening that we were just at, that there is a strong connection between pop culture and mental health. What is that connection, or how would you describe that, or where does that come from?
That's a really loaded question. So how we approach conventions, I did kind of a demoed version of it before Victims and Villains even started. And I really loved kind of going to conventions, and I'm a people person by nature, so I would have conversations with people, you know, what's your favorite superhero? Why is it your favorite superhero? You know, what kind of got you into fandoms? And a lot of things that we were seeing people say to us was, it started as a means to escape being bullied, or being, I was sexually assaulted and I found solace in these characters, or, you know, and so a lot of the character journeys, even for films that are heavy in fantasy, you know, we see a lot of these characters that relate to a lot of the emotions that we go through, or journeys that we go through, and so we resonate. One of the things that I shared this at Horrific Hope this past year, and just posted it on our line online. Halloween 2 was kind of that for me, as I'm wearing the hoodie right now.
And you'll get the hand tattoo that we can see.
I do have a hand tattoo right here. It's also from the barn scene. But the movie released 8 months after I lost a friend to suicide, and came out on DVD right around the time of his 1-year anniversary. And that film has a lot of connections of like journeying through the journey of processing trauma. And that for me was something that I took a lot of solace in, because I was like, these are fictional characters, but they remind me that I'm not alone, that there are other people that are going through these journeys.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it's like everyone is escaping commonly, but then when you connect through this common escape, you find a real world community. It's a really interesting paradox. It's very cool. And when does the film festival come into it?
So the film festival kind of started as a COVID project, and when we first started Victims and Villains, and we were starting to like fundraise some of our outreach efforts, we had a tradition where we would do a 48-hour stream. And eventually that 48-hour stream, went through a 72-hour block, and it went through a 24-hour block. But the later we got into doing the stream, the less we were like, the more complicated it got to get people to stream for 2 to 4 hours. Playing a game or finding podcasts that were equipped to stream, because not every podcast is, and so I kind of had this crazy idea of what would happen if we did short film blocks. And Horrific Hope was actually the name of our fundraiser that we did in 2020. And it was a collection of short films, podcasting, gaming. I think we had that one. We had our friend, I don't remember if we had Zambies or not, but she does miniature painting. She's been a guest on the Abyss Gazing podcast that I co-host a lot of times. So the reason I bring all of that up is ultimately is because we got a lot of really positive responses from it. And so that kind of opened the doorway to conversations with the Alamo Draft House, where we hosted in Winchester, Virginia. And we kind of, I created the Film Freeway page for us, and basically from there it kind of grew into what it is today. And I kind of put it out there by just pure faith that people would respond to it and gravitate to it. And our first year, we hustled, and we got a lot of films. We worked with a couple independent publications that specialized in independent films, and so we were like, we'll do something for you guys if you guys help us. And we kind of made a deal with them that way. And we were fortunate enough to have some truly talented filmmakers that first year, and it's kind of only evolved from there.
As a programmer, your festival is horror-centric films based on mental health.
So the tagline for the film festival is horror-centric and mental health focused.
Yes.
And so some people are intimidated by that, because they're like, well, what happens if my film is like not exclusively like all horror? What happens if it has nothing to do with mental health? We've shown in the past, like we have what we call Legacy Picture, which is a film that is celebrating a anniversary, celebrating a film. And so we screened House of Thousand Corpses last year. We celebrated 20 years. And that has nothing at all to do with mental health. And we've screened, the first year we screened a film called Witch, which is literally about a killer sandwich in the vein of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. So like we've done and we've showcased films that literally have nothing to do with horror, have nothing to do with mental health, and are just like goofy slapsticky horror. And then on the flip side of that, we've also programmed films that are drama that focus exclusively on mental health and have nothing to do with horror. Our point, we did that this past year with Yolks, by Jesse Womack, and the entirety of the film is about eating disorder and body dysmorphia. And we were lucky enough to have Jesse and his wife in attendance with us, and so we got to do a Q&A and got to share some education about body dysmorphia and how common it is among males, because it's not normally a conversation that normally happens around males, because body dysmorphia here in the States is often thought of as a female only issue.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. And I say that as someone that has an off and on battle with body dysmorphia. And so, that's a common misconception. And, we want our festival to be, it's going to be focused on horror, but we want it to also be a place where people can feel like their films are welcome, even if they don't fit exclusively one category or the other.
Yeah. Because that was going to be my next question to you, is what are you looking for as a programmer?
I've been fortunate enough to know our audience before we even started programming. So the Alamo Draft House is a really cool spot. And they do these film clubs that people just kind of get together and just watch movies, both old and new. And one of their horror is called Psycho Cinema, and they program a lot of like really awesome 80s movies, the schlocky 90s movies, modern movies, and I've been to a lot of their screenings over the years, just as a fan, because I used to live a lot closer than we do now, and I got to know a lot of that community, and they have an awesome Facebook group, and so I'm very interactive with that, and I kind of knew the type of audience that we were entering into. So I had the advantage of not going in blind and already having a built-in audience. But as a programmer, I am looking for things that are going to satisfy with our audience. And sometimes that is a compelling drama. Sometimes that's supernatural horror. Sometimes that's, schlocky throwback horror. It really honestly depends on, it's a really hard question to answer as a programmer, because, I've programmed movies that I would consider very prestigious. And then I've programmed films that I'm like, man, like this is so cheesy but it's so great and it's so much fun and the audience is gonna love this. We programmed a film last year called First Blood, and the entirety I was so excited for it to experience that with an audience, because it's about a young girl that hits puberty, goes through her teenage years, and develops a addiction to menstrual blood. And there's actual scenes where like she wakes up and like is like visually eating it. And
I remember Tom and I watched this together. It's truly disgusting. Yeah.
But
it's beautifully filmed though.
Yeah.
Like the cinematography was amazing.
Yeah, and
the sound design was gorgeous, but it's disgusting.
Yeah, and I mean that's just the type of film that I want to showcase all different types of films. Like I don't want to just be like, oh, this year is going to be exclusively possession films, or this year is going to be exclusively horror films with the comedic twist.
Yeah.
I want films that are going to resonate with multiple people. So we try and program a multitude of films because, well, at the end of the day, the same reason that we do a lot of like when it comes to music, we do mostly mixed genres, and that's because we want to appeal to everyone, but also depression doesn't discriminate. So depression goes on and doesn't care of your race, gender, sexual identity, gender identity, whether or not you're gay, straight, non-binary, none of that. It goes after everyone, and we want our events to have that same mentality that we're fighting against. So we want all people to feel welcome.
Lovely. Where do we find you? What do you want us to know about that you're working on?
So you guys can find everything you need to know about Victims and Villains on our website. We're at victimsandvillains.net, where we have our podcast network, information about the film festival, where you can also submit, give you a direct link to Film Freeway, movie reviews that we've done, upcoming events we have, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. But we're also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Our podcast network also includes Abyss Gazing, our horror podcast, and then our pop culture podcast called Brilliant But Lazy. And then the off again, on again Nicolas Cage podcast we do called That's High Praise.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is that what you watch Nicolas Cage films and appraise them?
Yeah, so the concept is we talk about the Nicolas Cage film, kind of pick them at random. We just did Long Legs a couple weeks back, and essentially we talk about it, we dissect the film, we address how it talks about mental health, how did it make our mental health feel, and then at the end of the podcast we say, is this movie worthy of high praise?
Nice.
So, yeah.
Great. Easy, right?
Easy.
Yeah.